if your cup is empty, you don't have anything to give. You don't have anything to pour out. And so that's always a constant challenge for me. And I kind of always have to keep that top of mind because the to-do list never ends.
Welcome to Women Talk Tech, the podcast for business professionals committed to advancing women in the tech sector.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Women Talk Tech. I'm your host, Marie Weiss, and today my very special guest is Liz McGlennen. And as we continue our conversation about trailblazers and the Trailblazer series that we've been doing on Women Talk Tech, I can't think of a more fitting or better guest to have on than Liz McGlennen. Welcome to the show, Liz.
Thanks, Marie. Very flattering. And I'm glad to be here and excited to talk with you today.
Okay. So listeners, I want to take you back to October 2023. And I want you to think that you're sitting in a big audience and you're sitting in an audience with over 1,000 people, at least more than 1,000 people in this audience. And people have come together for a conference. And, you know, when you hear the keynote speakers and you see people up on stage and you're kind of paying attention and you're kind of not, my experience at this conference, and I was one of the people sitting in the audience, suddenly Liz McGlennen gets up on stage to talk about Tech Fluent. And everybody stopped and paid attention. So we're going to talk about Tech Fluent today, which is an organization that Liz has started. We're going to talk about her commitment to getting people into the tech sector and in a very hands-on way. And I'm so excited to have you here today. I know there's a bunch of things we need to talk about, but let's start where we always start. Take us back to Liz in high school. What was Liz thinking? Did Liz want to have a career in tech? What was going on there?
Definitely didn't think tech or STEM would be a career option for me. So I have never viewed myself as very strong in math or science. Like I was very average in all the just like normal level classes. And in high school, I was part of like their nerdy group. So like when I was taking trig and stats, my friends were like in AP Calc in high school. And so I was like, I'm bad at math. I'm bad at science. And I thought you needed to be good at those things to be in tech. And so, no, I was into things completely unrelated. I liked the fine arts. So have a passion for playing instruments, piano, singing at the time.
I was going to ask you about your piano playing. Maybe you should play us something.
Not on the podcast. So I have this thing where I don't like playing in front of people. I haven't played in front of people probably since college. So yeah. But as a hobby, I love. I've been playing since I was like 7 or 8. And so it's a way for me to like decompress. It's almost like a form of meditation to like reset and relax. And so, so I was like singing in a choir and playing piano and in musicals and doing art class. So I went to a small high school. And so I didn't know, you didn't have to be like the top 1% to be on the team or in the club. And so I got to do a bunch of different things. And as I could probably share more about my work history, you're going to see a common trend that I like to do a lot of different things. I get bored easily and I like variety. So I did running. So I did long distance, cross country and track. And I still like to run and jog. And I just did a bunch of extracurriculars. Like I was in student council and speech club and I just kind of dabbled around, but tech was nowhere on the radar. So no, definitely wasn't planning on it.
So I want to take a minute and explain to listeners that Liz has started this organization called Tech Fluent. And the mission of Tech Fluent is to reduce income inequality in under-resourced communities across the U.S. by providing mentorship and training on Microsoft Dynamics 365 and Power Platform. You've just recently become a Microsoft MVP. Congratulations. Well done.
Thanks.
And I know you're co-host of a podcast that I have a lot of respect for. I think you do the podcast with Ashley Steiner called The Hotdish, Dynamics Hotdish, which I love the name of. And you've really had a lot of experience in the Microsoft channel, which is not easy to get to know, by the way. It's difficult and it's confusing, and it took me a long time to understand the space. What made you want to start this nonprofit? What was it that you were seeing, and why were you driven to do this? Because it is a Herculean undertaking to start an organization. And that's why we're talking to people on this series about being a trailblazer. Why did you want to be a trailblazer? You could have easily gone and worked somewhere else in a nonprofit and helped people in that way. But to start something is tough. So tell me where that came from.
Yeah. And if I would have known how hard it has been, like it's gone really well, but it's just a lot of work. And it feels very lonely to be an entrepreneur and at a startup sometimes and doing something different. So sometimes I think back, like if I had hindsight bias, I don't know if I would have done it. And I'm kind of glad I didn't know. Like I'm just kind of a jump before you look, like leap before you look kind of person. And so I'm kind of glad that I went for it because I'm really happy with how it's gone and where I'm at. But yeah, it is hard. It is a lot of work.
Well, they say the same thing about they say the same thing about parenting. I don't know if you knew that, but if there was an actual parenting handbook, nobody would have kids because it's too hard. If we knew then what we know now, we wouldn't have done it.
Well, maybe that makes me feel better about not having kids yet because it might have been a lot doing both at the same time. So,
well, TechFluent is kind of your baby. You got to put a lot of time and effort into that, right?
Yeah. But a lot of things kind of came together over the course of years to kind of lead me to the point of starting TechFluent. So it's not like I woke up one day and I was like, I have this crystal clear vision. It was definitely like a slow evolution of gaining different work experiences, being in the industry for a period of time, and kind of putting pieces together and it forming into the ultimate idea of being TechFluent. So a few things I noticed just from the start being in the Microsoft channel is that there's always been a lack of diversity. So a lack of women, a lack of BIPOC, just a lack of diversity. There's a lot of old, white, straight men in our space historically, right?
Thank you for saying that. I thank you for just coming right out and saying that because it's absolutely true. But thank you for creating that demographic in everybody's head. So go on.
Yeah. And I became a leader, a CE practice director at Stoneridge Software in 2018. And I was a hiring manager for the first time. So I wasn't just observing it as an individual contributor, as a consultant or in a different role. I was observing it as I'm trying to interview and find talent. And there was a lack of talent. Now, I know this recent year with the layoffs and the shift in the economy, like we do have kind of a plethora of tech talent for this period of time. But at that time, and I do believe in the future that we will still have a shortage of people with the skill sets we need to continue to implement and grow the Power Platform, biz apps, Dynamics space.
I absolutely agree. Couldn't agree more.
And we were spending a lot of money on senior talent, on people. Yeah. And so that I had that experience for 2 years. And then at the same time, I had just finished my MBA and I started teaching college courses as an adjunct professor at Morehead State. And I was teaching Intro to CRM and Intro to Consulting. And I was really hoping that I would find students that wanted to start careers in my industry and that wanted to talk to me about how do I get started. Well, it was a self-paced course. And so really there was no in-person. It was virtual, but there was really no interaction. Like I'd grade assignments and submit feedback and always offered like, hey, reach out, schedule a time to talk. And out of 2 years of teaching it year round, I had 1 or 2 students. So out of hundreds of people, 2 people reached out to chat with me about the career path. And I don't think either of them ended up pursuing it. And so it wasn't really what I had thought it was going to be. And so that also kind of opened up my eyes to that. There's not a lot of colleges and university programs that have a comprehensive program to like gear people up to be a consultant in biz apps and Dynamics Power Platform and D365. And this was these 2 courses were part of a project management degree, which was great. It gave them great exposure, but again, wasn't really a specific career path. And so I left both of those roles in December of 2019. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I had like a early 30s crisis. And I was like, I don't know if I want to stay in tech, if I want to stay in consulting. Like, I don't know what I want to do. And I decided I was going to try to be an independent consultant. It just seemed like a natural step, like gave me a lot of flexibility, gave me control over which projects and clients I took on and worked with. And I decided that at the end of February of 2020. So had lined up in-person training work in Ohio, which became remote work that October because the pandemic happened. And so I didn't have anything to do for like 6 months before I finally landed a remote gig. And so I had a lot of time. And really, the Dynamics Hotdish, the podcast, was born out of that period. And the beginning stages of Tech Fluent were born out of that period. And I think without having that much downtime, which was extremely uncomfortable in the moment, but I don't think I would have ever kind of gotten to this point. I think I would have been too busy working to really have the time to reflect. And then I live in Minneapolis, in the suburbs of Minneapolis. So George Floyd was murdered that same spring, and I started marching and protests and meeting people from the Black Lives Matter movement. And so that's kind of inequality aspect came into, I want to do training. Originally, it was a for-profit idea, but then it kind of shifted to how can we make this a nonprofit and try to reach a demographic that just doesn't have the avenue into our space, into tech, for so many different reasons.
'Tis the season of so many messages and promotions saying new year, new you. And while I do love a New Year's resolution, I'm sick of feeling like I don't have the resources to actually make them happen. If you're looking ahead to 2024 with some career goals in mind, Women Talk Tech is here to equip you with the lifelong tools and skills to achieve them in the new year and beyond. Join us on January 18th, 2024 for our Pitch Perfect workshop to learn how to pitch yourself and establish your personal brand. Whether you're seeking your dream job, negotiating a contract, or building your network in 2024, being able to present yourself with power, confidence, and clarity is essential. Head to our website, womentalktech.co/pitch perfect workshop to learn more and secure your spot today. Plus, as a special offer to our listeners, if you grab your ticket between now and January 5th, use the coupon code WomenTalkTech at checkout to receive $30 off your order. Happy holidays, and we can't wait to see you there.
So this past year, remind me. So at the beginning of the podcast, I mentioned that I was at this conference called Summit. There was probably close to 8,000 people at Summit. And during one of the keynotes, Liz got up on stage and talked about Tech Fluent. And if I'm not mistaken, there was some pretty good announcements made when you got up to talk about it. So this past year, you've put 15 people through training. Is that correct? Am I getting the numbers right?
25 people were enrolled, 19 graduated. So we have consistently about an 80% graduation rate. And then we sent 13 to the conference, to Summit. So Dynamic Communities sponsored 13 of our recent grads to go, covered their conference fee, all the travel and all of that to help them network and get more education and ultimately help them find jobs in the space. And 3 of them landed jobs on site that week. So we were really excited about that.
Yay! Look at your numbers. That is so fantastic. I'm really, really happy for you. And you made a really great announcement in Summit. And tell our listeners what that announcement was.
Yeah. So at the time of Summit, I had said my goal is to enroll 100 people in Tech Fluent in 2024. And actually, the board just voted last week and made that decision official. We haven't met all of our fundraising goals yet, but we feel confident that we can. And so we did decide that we are officially looking to enroll up to 100 people next year, which is a big, lots of growth. Like we've historically enrolled 25 a year. And so we're quadrupling it. And also hopefully rolling out areas of specialty. So historically we've trained just general training across the board on Power Platform CE, and then just a high level overview of BC and F&O. And next year, because we're going to have so many learners, we want to do tracks and deep dives so that we're producing not just generalists, but specialists. So everyone will still get the soft skill and career development and Power Platform training, but then we'll have 4 paths, one group focused on CE, F&O, BC, and then BI. and then they'll get the certs, the Microsoft certifications aligned with those. And then they'll really be able to dig in deep into one area of the product, because as anyone in the space realizes, that you can't know it all. And those are very different skill sets. And, people are coming with different backgrounds. So like if someone's coming with a finance and accounting background, it kind of makes sense to send them down that ERP path. And we're seeing a lot of demand from employers for the ERP skill sets too. And so we're also kind of incorporating that in with the growth from an enrollment perspective.
Okay, I want to go back to a couple things you said. First of all, you said, if I'd known then what I know now, I might not have done it. What has been one of the toughest things you've had to deal with starting your own organization?
Yeah. I mean, doing a lot of things that I've never had to do before. So as an entrepreneur, you're constantly faced with processes, operational things, challenges that in an individual role, you just never have to worry about. Or you can go to your manager and be like, hey, I need help here, and get someone to take care of it for you. But I think it's also hard. We don't have paid staff. So everyone I'm working with is a volunteer. And so this is not a TechFluent specific problem. I hear this from all the nonprofits I talk to, is just how to always work on volunteer engagement, on involuntary engagement. And then really just feeling like there's so much to do, like a never ending giant to-do list, and trying to prioritize things effectively and spending the time where it makes the most sense, but also like taking care of myself. So I struggle with being a workaholic. I've definitely been burnt out in the past, hence just quitting my job in 2019. And so trying to balance wanting to do more and all of it with also taking care of myself, like personally and my family, because obviously if your cup is empty, you don't have anything to give. You don't have anything to pour out. And so that's always a constant challenge for me. And I kind of always have to keep that top of mind, because the to-do list never ends. There's always so much more you can be doing as a leader of a startup.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So let me summarize a couple things that you've said, and you jump in and correct me if I haven't got these wrong. But, as our listeners are thinking about what it takes to be a trailblazer and why you want to be a trailblazer. So you want to be a trailblazer because you want to start something new, and particularly in an area where you've seen a problem that you want to solve. And I think that's what you're definitely saying. The second thing about being a trailblazer, I think, is take that time that you need to think through what you want to build and how you want to start it. And even if it's uncomfortable sitting in the unknowing of it all, embrace that discomfort, because you're not going to know all the answers. And I think the third thing you're saying about being a trailblazer is that being a trailblazer doesn't mean being a workaholic. Being a trailblazer means that you understand the balance between what you need personally and what you need to give. And I think that is a really important comment, and one that we hear from a lot of people about how we now balance our work and our lives. But being a trailblazer doesn't mean you have to work 80 hours a week and give your life to this. It means you have to be committed to solving a problem and keep at it, even when you've got roadblocks and obstacles in your way. When I heard you make the announcement this year that you were going from having accepted 25 to wanting to accept 100 and get 100 people through the program, I just had such a moment of sheer delight, and was actually proud that I was finally seeing people in this particular tech channel that we work in, stepping up and addressing such an important issue. And here's how we're going to embrace people and bring them into the sector. When you yourself had one foot out the door, you yourself was saying, we hear a lot of the stats around women who've joined the tech sector and then leave the tech sector. And, I applaud you for this. How can people get involved and help you or support you with this mission? You talked about volunteer engagement. Well, what do you need right now? How can we help you? And maybe there's listeners out there who can put their hand up and assist.
Yeah. So if you want to learn more about TechFluent and get involved in any of the ways I'm going to mention, you can go to our website. So techfluentacademy.org. And we really need help in 3 different capacities. So the first is that I still have half of my cohort looking for jobs. So if you're an employer, if you are a company using the Power Platform or D365 and you need help on your IT team, trainers, QA, support, anything like that, I have people looking for those types of jobs. I also have people looking for like data analysts and Power BI jobs. And then, of course, if you're an ISV or a Microsoft partner, associate consultant roles are a great fit for our grads as well, too. So definitely need more connections with places that want to hire people from TechFluent. We also are always looking for more financial resources. So, individuals can donate through PayPal. There's a donate button on our website, and any amount helps. So we provide a lot of things, but to give 2 different examples of how the money is spent is that we give certification vouchers. So everyone from our program has to get at least 1 Microsoft certification to graduate. We actually allocate 4 vouchers per person. And so if you donate $20, you can cover 1 exam voucher. But we also give out equipment. So one of the challenges we see is that depending on where the financial situation that the person is coming from, that they might not have the right device to participate in the training, especially Power BI. You need a PC with certain specs, but we also give out a second monitor, a keyboard, a mouse, because they're doing over 200 hours of virtual training, and you can't do that effectively on just a laptop screen. And so it costs about $100 to ship out the equipment, depending on where they are in the US. And so if you donate $100, you can cover the cost of shipping that setup out to someone. So financial contributions, and there's also corporate partnerships that are higher amounts, and those are all available to look at on the website and come with a variety of perks. And then the last thing is volunteers.
Seems like a pretty easy way to get involved in my mind. I don't think anybody can say no to giving you $20 because I think that's ideal. Yeah.
And that's very discounted. So Microsoft gives us discounted certifications for those that aren't in the space. The certification typically ranges from $100 to $200. And so we're getting those at a huge discount, which is also really helpful, but obviously it still costs money. And then the last thing is volunteers. So last year I had a global team of over 100 volunteers support our 25 learners. And so I'll need mentors, trainers, career coaches, leadership team members. We're refreshing the board this month. So if you're interested in volunteering in any capacity, I'm sure I can find a spot for you. Some of the roles are pretty, minimal level of effort, 1 to 2 hours a week. And obviously leadership roles entail a lot more than that. But yeah, I'm happy to talk to anyone. They don't need to be in our industry. We definitely need more volunteers to keep it all going because it is a community effort to make all of that happen.
Right. Well, listen, I'm really glad people like you exist. I'm really glad people like you are taking a run at this because this really is important. And I have said for a long time that the mission at Women Talk Tech is to get more women into the tech sector for 2 reasons. It's a good place to be financially to help grow someone's career. I think the tech sector is always growing and booming, but we need more voices and more diversity at the table when we're making tech decisions that affect us globally and as a community. And so we need more diverse people at the table. And I think you have really nailed it with respect to your mission and what you're doing. And so thank you so much for doing it. I really appreciate it. I think it's
a
really
very fulfilling role. Yeah. And very
hard.
Yeah.
It's hard being a trailblazer. You're sometimes the first person through the wall. And it's the great line from the movie Moneyball when the supposed owner of the Boston Red Sox says to the Brad Pitt character, the first guy through the wall is always the bloodiest. And so when you're a trailblazer, it can be kind of painful breaking through that wall and getting through that feeling of, why, this is so hard. Why am I doing it? Well, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So thank you for being a trailblazer. I've been speaking with Liz McGlennen, and she's the executive director at TechFluent. If I didn't properly introduce you in the beginning, I apologize, but we'll put your contact details in the show notes. And TechFluent is a nonprofit organization on a mission to reduce income inequality in under-resourced communities across the U.S. by providing mentorship and training on Microsoft Dynamics 365 and Power Platforms. And I congratulate you once again for becoming an MVP. That's not an easy task. We need more women in there. And so thank you again for being that trailblazer.
Yeah, it's exciting. And I hope that other people do the same thing, right? Like I get asked a lot about, do you feel like you have competitors in your space? And I'm like, no, there are so many people that need the help and want the resources that I think there could be 10 more of me and there would still be a demand from a learner side. And so I just encourage people to try things, like don't be afraid and, follow your passion, like be your authentic self. Don't feel like you have to stay in a role because that's what's normal or what you feel like is expected. Like if something's calling to you, like pursue it and try it. And I don't know, take the risk. Like the worst thing is that you end up back to where you were before you tried. And that's the way I have viewed it, is like, if this doesn't work out, I'll just go back to consulting until I figure out my next thing.
What's the worst that could happen? Yeah, what's the worst that could happen? Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I've been speaking with Liz McGlennen, the Executive Director at Tech Fluent. I am your host, Marie Weiss, and as always, thank you so much for listening.